Welcome to Real Estate in Real Time. I'm your host, Woody Zimmerman, here with Mark Skibowski of RE/MAX Lakes, and welcome to the show.
Here we are. Good morning.
And what week is this that we're
I don't.
5, 6, 7?
And we're finally starting to come out.
Yeah, we are.
We are. I think things are. I'm not going to say getting back to normal because I don't know that we'll ever be back to where we were.
Mm-hmm.
Although I'm not one of those, oh my gosh, let's change society in general. But you know, at any time we have something that impacts like this, we're all going to change how we do things going forward.
Yeah, well, I've been in a couple of restaurants here lately. I stopped at Shoop's to get a cherry Coke. It just sounded great on the way home last night. And it's every other
you
booth.
can walk in.
Yeah, and you can walk in, and every other booth is torn down. So
Okay. Really?
yeah, trying to keep that social distancing.
Wow.
So it's like, they tore them down to make sure that nobody would, say, hey, I'm going to sit here and I don't care.
That's probably a good thing because
Yeah.
you know you're going to run into issues.
Oh, yeah.
Where people are, it's a bunch of hooey, I don't care, I'm going to sit here right next to the person that, they're taking a little more seriously than what others do.
Yeah.
I think putting yourself in a position where you're not, refereeing those arguments probably makes sense.
Right. It's Menards, they're requiring a mask. And my dad was walking into Menards, and there was a guy walking in, like, right behind him, and he's like, I'm not wearing a mask. And, then, like, an argument.
Well, then you're not coming in.
Well, then
I mean,
you're
it's
not-
pretty
that's
simple.
right.
That's the answer.
And, well, when I was there yesterday, there was a security guard right there.
Really?
So, I mean, that's what it's come to.
Yeah.
But
Woo.
things have changed.
Things have changed, absolutely.
Things have changed,
Yeah.
but they've changed in your world as well.
They have changed, in the real estate market as far as trying to, show homes,
Mm-hmm.
sellers considering that. So, I kind of thought today we'd talk about the stuff going on with adjustments from a lender standpoint, from a seller standpoint, and then, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. Is now a good time to do that? So, when this whole thing started a couple of shows ago, maybe it was a month, I don't know, you're right. I don't know what month it is.
Right.
I don't know what day it is.
You just can't tell.
I don't know. But when this started, one of the articles I had talked about was mortgage forbearance,
Yeah.
which is where the lenders are working with people,
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that they don't lose their home, so they don't go into foreclosure. And there was a big headline. It was, mortgage forbearance jumps 1,400%. And it had went from like 0.25 to 3% in a very short period of time, 1,400%, whatever that math is.
Yeah.
Well, now mortgage forbearance is now up to almost 11%. So that means 11% of the homeowners have reached out to their lenders and said, hey, can you accommodate? Can you adjust whatever we're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Now, all of that comes with a price. Long term, generally what they're doing is they're adding the months back to the end of the mortgage. So if you had a 30-year mortgage, it's now 30 years and 3 months or 6 months or however long your forbearance period is.
Yeah.
Which, isn't the end of the world.
No.
Especially today, we're worried about surviving today.
Right.
Tactically, from a military standpoint, we're fighting the battle.
Mm-hmm.
We want to win the battle so we can ultimately win the war.
Right.
Well, you need to stay in your home. So the lenders recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
And, that is totally different than what we saw in 2008 and 2009. I mean, when I talk to people every day, well, I'm just going to wait. There's going to be a glut of foreclosures because of the COVID thing. Well, I would disagree with that. When we see those forbearance numbers going up, in this case, lenders are willing to work with people. And in 2008, it seemed like they were just taking them back. They didn't care. They were, if people were late they were using the contract and within their rights, but they were following the mortgages and the promissory notes that those people had signed to the T. And they were taking them back. They were taking them into foreclosure, which ultimately impacted pricing, because when you bring a lot of homes that are, not priced at market value, or you flood the market with supply, obviously the supply-demand thing, right?
Yeah.
Supply increases, price is going to go down.
Yeah.
If demand is down, and in 2008 demand was down. There was, significant unemployment.
Mm-hmm.
So right now it's totally different. Right? We've got lenders that are working with people, which again, in 08, I'm not going to say that they did. I'm not going to say they didn't. I guess I'm going to say they did.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
They did not want to
Right.
work with people, or they
Right.
weren't willing to work with people, and in this case, they are. We have government stimulus. I mean, significant dollars that the federal government has thrown, not in bailing out GM,
Right.
not in bailing out big corporations, but came directly to people. You've got the unemployment, with the additional $600 a week that's fallen through to a lot of folks who aren't working. So, overall, I think the government, the lenders, private industry has adapted and is changing to this new normal.
Sounds like we've learned something from the 2008-2009 crisis, and so we are handling it differently as a government is handling it differently. I mean, it sounds like banks were consulted. This is what you need to do,
right.
Because we learned a few things about what not to do back in 2008-2009. And I understand the bank's point of view is that, hey, you're falling behind. We need to do something,
right.
and we're going to take normal protocol.
Right. Within their rights to do that.
Absolutely.
But at least they've adjusted for this go around.
Yeah.
So you're right. They learned something out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. All right. We're going to talk more about this coming up here next. You're listening to Real Estate in Real Time. Welcome back. You're listening to Real Estate in Real Time. I'm your host, Woody Zimmerman, here with Mark Skibowski of RE/MAX Lakes. And we're just talking about more loans. We're up to, I think, 11% of the mortgages that are out there are in forbearance right now. And that means that mortgage companies, lenders are willing to work with those people that maybe are laid off or furloughed and dropping behind, but we know that the banks don't want to be in the real estate business.
Right.
They want to be in the lending business.
Correct, and they want you to pay that mortgage off. I mean, if you're being foreclosed upon, or if you've got negative things happening, that may not be your thought process, but you just hit the nail on the head. Yeah. Banks do not want to be in the real estate business.
So in 2008, 2009, we did see a lot of foreclosures, and we saw the prices drop considerably. I don't think we're going to see that this time, and you'd mentioned that before the break that you don't think that we're going to see that. So the next question is it a good time to sell?
It is. It is. There are still buyers out there. So I pulled a couple of articles in the headline. Sellers are holding buyers back. Mm-hmm. This is on realtor magazines or things like that. There is not a lot of inventory. And that is really impacting. So there's pent-up demand. Mm-hmm. You've got people that have been in their houses for 6 weeks that maybe realized, hey, I need a bigger house. I need a different house. Yeah. Or, it's just the right time to buy. There's people that are in apartments dealing with the same thing. Hey, I can afford to buy. I should go ahead and buy. Mm-hmm. But there's no inventory for them. So in the last week, I had a property I listed in Pearston. We had 7 offers on this house.
Wow.
7 offers. So multiple offer situations are still out there. Yeah. Not too long ago, I talked about one in a $500,000 price range. Mm-hmm. This was in a $125,000 price range. We are seeing multiple offers happening again and again. So from a seller's standpoint, yes, now is a good time if the time is right for you. Are you willing to allow people to come into your house? Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are struggling with that. There have been homes that have come on the market and they've taken them off. Why? If you're in that age group, and I think it's 60 and over, and I'm not there yet, but I'm pushing that window, Yeah. Would I put my house on the market? I guess that's sort of like when we talk about buyers. What's your why? Mm-hmm. If you need to sell, now is a great time to sell. But just understand, you're going to have strangers in your house. Mm-hmm. It's going to be different than it's been before. I showed property this week, and the seller had booties at the door. They had, hand sanitizer at the door, and they asked that we wear masks. So, at least they provided them. I've had buyers that said, well, I'm not going to look at that house if I have to wear a mask. I mean, so you're dealing with that. Just as we were talking off air about Menards, right? Mm-hmm. It's mandatory. You have a mask on. Well, there are buyers that say, well, fine, I won't look at your house if you're going to require me to do those things. Mm-hmm. It's the seller's right to ask you to do it, to protect themselves. Right. It's the buyer's right to say, well, then fine, I'm not going to look at it. Mm-hmm. And as an agent, we're right in the middle of that. Mm-hmm. We're trying to keep everybody happy. Hey, this is the house this could be for you. Maybe you ought to put your mask on because, it's a good one. The alternative is we do a virtual showing. A Zoom meetings, I can walk through and do a Zoom showing for somebody. So from sellers, you just have to adapt and adjust to the current market conditions. It's a little different than selling in the past. I'm not going to host an open house Because how can I socially distance in an open house?
Right.
I'm going to have to be talking to those people, and we're going to have people crawling all over your house.
Yeah.
Again, do you want that in your house? So you can, as a seller, just express those concerns to your agent if you're thinking about putting it on the market. At least have the talk. There are successful sales taking place every day.
Mm-hmm.
Some agencies have implemented, you have to sign a waiver, you've got to fill out, answer the questions before, you come in if you had a cough, if you had a fever, any of those things. Quite honestly, paper for paper doesn't make any sense to me. That's just, hey, I'm trying to protect, but prove that you got COVID from my house.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
This is uncharted territory.
It is.
But I can tell you, I'm sure there will be some lawsuits that come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't want to scare anybody, but if people see an opportunity, they're going to take it.
I think there's going to be lawsuits from governors, like keeping states shut down for too long, for somebody's opinion, or not doing enough. So we're going to see a bunch of lawsuits, and
it's going to shift and it's going to change. So is now a good time to sell? Absolutely. If it's the right time for you, you've got to make that decision. Run through why am I moving? Where am I going? Because you got to think about that. If there's limited inventory, where are you moving to?
Right.
Do you know the place? The best thing is to be able to buy without having to have your home sold, and not everybody can do that. There are some who can, but not everybody can. So I think you've really got to put your brain into it and say this is the right time or not. If you want to sell, the market is open. We are definitely open for business. Prices are good. I mean, prices are moving up.
Yeah, they're very good. I mean, we talked last week. I mean, I can't remember the number, if it was like around 10-ish or so. 10 more homes have been sold this year in Warsaw than this time last year.
Correct.
But prices actually went up.
Went up. That and it's not going to continue. The whole thing is going to be based on employment. I mean, that's the thought process on this.
Right.
If employment comes back, I think we're going to see a great June and July.
Mm-hmm.
I do. If people are still laid off, you can't get a loan while you're unemployed. Right. So if people don't come back to work, I think we're going to have an issue in the mortgage business. I do. I think getting mortgages.
Well, a couple things. A lot of businesses are bringing people back.
Right.
Number one. Number two, I've always said if the housing market is doing well and if the auto industry is doing well, then the overall economy is doing well. And right now there's a lot of incentives for car dealers to sell at like 0% financing.
Yeah.
So, and that's working. It seems to be working. So if we could stay on this track, I mean, I agree. I think like June and July, or July and August are going to be pretty good.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to helping people get into new homes.
Mm-hmm.
If that's what they want to do, we want to help them get there, and we want to do it and get them there safely. That's the big deal.
Yeah, very true. Okay, all right, contact information?
Sure, our website's lakes-realtors.com. Phone numbers 574-834-1233.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. That's Mark Skibowski of RE/MAX Lakes. You've been listening to Real Estate in Real Time. Have yourself a wonderful weekend.